Barnet Fair was a 16th century medieval pleasure fair. But it didn't take the Londoners, those cockneys, to adopt that phrase, Barnet Fair. It rhymed with hair. And they abbreviated it to Barnet. But as you can see, I don't have a lot going on in my Barnet, but what I do have is a moustache that's very rowdy. So I'm going to fix that up before I start driving.
What are we doing for you?
Well, my moustache.
Okay. Take it off the lip.
Well, I need some advice, really. I was told perhaps not to take it off the lip and to try to grow it that way.
Yeah.
But you're the expert, so I'm here for a bit of advice about how to deal with it.
Yeah, it can be a bit uncomfortable getting moustache in your coffee.
Yeah.
So, I always suggest maybe trimming just the inside parts a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't want to take all of it because I can see you are trying to do the handlebars.
Well, I feel a lot more groomed now, but what I really need is an elegant set of wheels to get me to my next destination. And there are few more elegant cars than this. The Citröen DS was launched at the Paris Motor Show in 1955 to an astonished public. Amazed Citroën officials on the stand took orders for more than 700 of these beautiful cars in the first 15 minutes. And by the end of the first day at the Salon in Paris, 12,000 firm orders were placed. So if you're thinking that sights of people coming out of iPhone stores and queuing around the block is a new phenomenon, this car shows you exactly what could be achieved from back in 1955. It became an overnight automotive sensation, and it was the darling of the intellectual elite. DS is very similar to the word goddess in French, and no wonder. The car drives like no other, and it has more cool and more style than most cars of today. And quite apart from this car's stunning looks, its real pièce de résistance is the hydro-pneumatic system. That powers the suspension, the brakes, the gear change, and even the power steering. This car belongs to a bygone era of suave sophistication, when cars were designed more for comfort and refinement than outright performance. But just look at this car. It's more than 60 years old in design, and yet it has single-column steering wheel. It has multi-directional vents, which were trend-setting of the day. And these seats, they're beyond comfortable. Now, the front door pivots open wide on these clever hinges, and you sit on a sofa-like front seat. The cabin is a big glass wraparound, giving you a commanding view of the road ahead. Citroën's hydro-pneumatic suspension could also raise the car's body to deal with poor roads. So high, in fact, that owners could change a tyre without using a jack, and it's lost none of its levitating alchemy over the decades. This car, so technically advanced for its time, actually is quite difficult to drive, even as an experienced driver, until you get the time just to familiarise yourself with the layout. The controls are light, easy to use, but they're in unusual places. For example, the gearbox is right here by your knee, the indicators don't self-cancel, and there's no brake pedal. The brake pedal is simply a circular button on the floor that you use with judicious care because it's so powerful. This beauty corners with serene dignity. It floats over bumps and potholes with disdain. And now I can imagine what it would have felt like to be Alibaba on his magic carpet. Now, the four-cylinder engine is certainly no powerhouse, but it does propel what is a very heavy and large car along beautifully in traffic, and it keeps up with modern cars, and that's a testament to a design that's more than 60 years old. As much as this car was a revolution, it was the French Revolution that is linked to my next destination. Napoleon Bonaparte was famed for loving a wine known as la Vin Constance. In fact, it was rumoured that he chose to have that wine by his side on his deathbed rather than medication or food. I'm off to Klein Constantia, one of the world's foremost vineyards, to talk to some of the people there that cultivate their modern take on this amazing wine. Good to meet you. So I've made it to Klein Constantia and I'm with Alan, the cellar door manager. Good to meet you. And thanks for inviting me in.
Pleasure.
So I've heard some great things about Klein Constantia estate. One thing in particular, but I'll get back to that in a minute. But can you tell me something about the estate?
Well, the Klein Constantia estate was part of the original Constantia estate of Simon van der Stel, so it dates back to 1685. Simon van der Stel got it started and planted the first vines in 1692 already. And then before 1700, the first bottle was out. By the time 1741 came along, people were calling it the world-renowned Constantia wine. So very famous. Napoleon drank it, the Tsars of Russia, Bismarck, etc. It's a long list of people.
Goodness me.
Very famous.
And what do we have here in front of us?
This is our Vin de Constance, which is the recreation of the original. This is the 2011. It's already scored 96 points. And just last week, we were voted for the 2009 as in the top 10 list for the Wine Spectator at number 10. And it's the first South African farm to ever do that.
Should we try some?
I think we should try some. Vin de Constance is made entirely from Muscat de Frontignan, which is allowed to raisin naturally on the vine. And we are looking for specific sugar levels. So we actually go into the vineyard 25 times and pick individual berries. So it's quite important, and as you'll taste, very complex, high acidity, so it's nice and light on the palate, and a long finish. It takes 5 years to make this, barreling 3.5 years on this vintage.
A little bit less to finish the bottle. Well, I've handed my keys to the driver. I've done my driving for the day. I'd like to follow you up to the wine shop and maybe hook a few of these bottles to take home.
Well, cheers to that.
Thank you. Kings and Tsars vied for possession of this wine. Napoleon Bonaparte used it to drown his sorrows in exile. And a British Prime Minister, so enamoured with it, sent it to Buckingham Palace for the King. And Le Vin de Constance is a sought-after wine, a real classic, and in many ways very similar to the Citröen DS.